Welcome into On the Mark with Anita Marks. That is me. And of course, the show brought to you by 500 Level. We are a week away from the NFL draft. So we are here to get you locked and loaded. We're going to talk about some of the biggest storylines heading into the NFL draft with Jacob Infante. He is the lead NFL draft analyst for PFN 365. So we're going to talk about the quarterbacks. We're going to talk about the offensive linemen. We're going to talk about Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. Where are these guys going to go? What are the Giants going to do? Right? With that, I personally feel that the draft really starts with the New York Football Giants. I really do believe that, right? Because everybody's expecting Cam Ward to go number one. How can the Cleveland Browns pass on Travis Hunter? I think he's the best player in this draft. And so now the Giants are going to be sitting there. Do they take Abdul Carter? Do they try to trade down? Do they take a quarterback? We're going to dive into all of it. So buckle up. Again, I want to thank our sponsor, 500 Level. Live like a legend. I'm actually wearing, since we're talking NFL, I'm wearing my Malik Neighbors 500 Level t-shirt. Make sure you, as I like to say, hashtag run, don't walk. Get over to 500 Level. Why? Iconic original graphic tees, 500 Level. Live like a legend. Immortalizes the legends of the game with iconic original graphic tees. 500 Levels custom t-shirts typically print next business day and ship directly to your home. So sign up for fan points, begin earning with every purchase. MLB, MLS, NBA. By the way, NBA playoffs start soon. NHL, NFL. They've got them all, even UFC and WWE. Shop 500level.com. And of course, don't forget, use my code MARKS20 for 20% off. 500 Level, live like a legend. Also, big shout out to a new sponsor we have and a really exciting show that's on the horizon. The Kentucky Derby, the 151st running of the Kentucky Derby is Saturday, May 3rd. That week, coming your way, May 1st, we've got a Kentucky Derby preview show for you. We're going to align with ABR, America's Best Racing, one of the best in the business that you can go to find out all your information about racing. We're going to talk about every horse that's going to be in the post, every horse that's going to challenge and try to win, as we like to call it, the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. And Naira Bets is on board with us. They're going to kick off the Triple Crown, of course, with the best race in the most exciting 2 minutes. Naira Bets has everything you need to bet on the 2025 Kentucky Derby online and with confidence. Sign up now to get a $25 Derby bet and a $200 sign-up bonus. So stay tuned for that show. Again, coming your way May 1st, getting you ready for the Kentucky Derby. We are so stoked. Also, some other preview notes. Not only are we doing a draft preview show, of course, right now, but we're going to have a mock draft show coming your way. Connor Rogers is going to be joining us. You see him all over NBC. We're going to have every pick for you, all 32 picks. We're also going to have beat reporters join us on the program to preview it. So stay tuned for that. And then on draft night, we're going to have a lot of analysis coming your way. So make sure you subscribe, watch all the things, our podcast on Apple, Spotify, however you digest your podcast, as well as our YouTube channel, On the Mark Show. All right, without further ado, let's dive into it. Jacob Infante joining us again, the lead NFL draft analyst at PFN 365. All right, Jacob, let's dive right into it. And I mean, do we need to spend any time talking about the Tennessee Titans? The fact that everybody, including my grandmother who texted me the other day, thinks that they're taking Cam Ward, right? Like, that's a no-brainer, right? Like, really, at the end of the day, the Browns are on the clock.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, it's Cam Ward. It's going to be Cam Ward, Tennessee at number one.
And then very interesting, right? Because I'm looking at your mock draft, and surprisingly, you have the Browns taking Shedeur Sanders. There's a number of people who have him much lower on their mock draft. Why do you feel the Browns are going to take Sanders at 2?
Yeah, so I do think that at this stage the Browns are in a situation where they have two quarterbacks in the mix, and I know that things are kind of trending, at least as far as reports go, towards the Browns going with Abdul Carter, the edge out of Penn State, or Travis Hunter, the corner receiver out of Colorado, which I think would be, you can't go wrong in either direction. But I do look at it as you don't have a quarterback answer on your roster right now, and I think that at least from as far as how high you're picking, this is probably the best chance you're going to get to take a quarterback. Whether or not you'll be able to get a better draft class in future years, I mean, that's a totally different discussion. But I think that they have an opportunity to get Sanders if they want him. Uh, I still think Sanders is going to go top 10 at the end of the day. If he doesn't go uh, to the Browns, I think he goes 9 to the Saints, or I think someone else trades up for him. But I think that the Browns, even if they don't go quarterback at 2, they're going to have to make some sort of investment in the position because it's the most important position in football. And Deshaun Watson hasn't looked like that guy. Kenny Pickett, so far in his stints between the Steelers and Eagles, hasn't looked like that guy. So I think that really caps your ceiling if you don't, if you know you're going to have a subpar quarterback option.
By the way, 14 to 1, you could wager that Sanders goes number 2. Doesn't necessarily have to be to the Browns, but just that Shador Sanders goes number 2 in this draft. You could wager, you could go to the window right now, and that is 14 to 1. I do believe that the Browns take Travis Hunter. And then the Giants are going to be sitting there. And I feel that that's really where this draft is going to get interesting. If Travis Hunter is gone and Cam Ward is gone, I do not believe the Giants take Sanders. And Abdul Carter spent a lot of time with the Giants this past Thursday, but reports out there is that he has a foot injury. And there are some reports out there that he's going to need surgery on that. One thing I do know about the Giants medical staff is they are the most conservative, and the ownership group listens to their medical staff. Rodney Barnes has been with the Giants for a long time. So I do believe that we live in a world that if the Giants medical staff says, whoa, red flag here, do not draft Abdul Carter. And I'm not saying that's what they're saying, but I'm saying there is a possibility for that. Now the Giants are sitting there at 3. What are they going to do? Are they going to try to trade down if they don't take Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter is off the board? I guess my question to you is, if that scenario presents itself, how likely is it that a team's going to trade up?
Honestly, I feel like in this draft class, there aren't too many players that are worth trading up for. I think Abdul Carter is one of them. And if for whatever reason the Giants are turned off by the foot injury, they don't want to, make that investment with a third overall pick. And I agree. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback at 3. They might take one in the second round. Maybe they'll trade up into round 1 for one, but I don't think they're going to take one with the third overall pick. Uh, so with all that said, I still think it will be Abdul Carter. But again, like you mentioned, the Giants tend to err on the side of caution. If they don't go in that direction, I do think that you're going to start seeing teams line up because I think Carter, from an athleticism from perspective, from a production perspective, from a power, pass rushing instincts perspective, he's one of the rare blue chip prospects in this class that there aren't admittedly a ton of this year. And I think that there's going to be a team who's going to be willing to move up for it. Exactly who that might be, I don't know. I think Abdul Carter, if the Browns don't take him at 2, which I think I think they'd lean Travis Hunter over Abdul Carter if the Browns were, if they pass on Shadur at 2. Uh, but I think Abdul goes number 3, whether it's the Giants or somebody else trading up for Carter. I don't think he falls out of the first 3 picks.
Yeah, again, I like Cam Ward won. I don't know how you can pass on Travis Hunter. I think he's the best player in this draft. That's where I have him going to the Browns. And then I think the Giants are going to be in an interesting situation. And again, very well could take Abdul Carter. Very well could. But if their medical staff has a big red flag, he's off their board. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they do. With that being said, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, Jacob, they can't find a trading partner. And they're sitting there, the time is dwindling. Can you see a draft board where Mason Graham goes number 3 overall? This is a guy that many analysts have as the best defensive lineman, right, pound for pound in this draft, even better than Abdul Carter. But of course, he plays on the interior part of the line. A lot of times you see the edge rushers go before the nose tackles or the interior defensive linemen. What are your thoughts on Mason Graham?
Yeah, I mean Mason Graham's an incredible football player. I think that you turn on the tape and you watch, high end levels of athleticism. You watch, his processing in terms of how he defends the run, how he uses hands to, keep stacking together moves to create backfield penetration as a pass rusher. I mean the speed's there, the power's there, the effort's there, the instincts are there, the technique's there. There's really a lot to like. I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world at defensive tackle, but at the same time, I feel like he has so much else that it doesn't necessarily matter as much. Uh, I mean, if the medicals don't check out in Abdul Carter, I think that's a situation I'm definitely considering. I'd consider Mason Graham there. I everything like in my logical side of my brain is thinking don't go running back that high, but they did it once with Saquon Barkley. If they really don't like Abdul Carter, maybe they could go in the direction of Ashton Genty. Again, I don't think they do, but it's a fun hypothetical to think about exactly how high he's going to go. Uh, I think that's his ceiling. And I don't think he reaches there. I do think ultimately the Giants do go with Abdul Carter, but Mason Graham's probably the next guy up that I'd consider. Uh, and then probably third, honestly, might be Genty.
Again, looking at your mock draft board, right? Cam Ward, Sanders, Hunter to the Giants, Abdul Carter to the Patriots, Mason Graham to the Jags, and then what I find really interesting is the Raiders sitting there at 6. That's where you have Genty
Mhm.
going to the Raiders. Why is that?
Yeah, so I think it's honestly a match made in heaven. I think you look at it right now, the Raiders don't have a bona fide running back one on their roster, and I think you bring in Pete Carroll, you bring in Geno Smith. Pete Carroll's shown during his time in Seattle that he really values running the football. I mean, he's invested heavily. He invested in Marshawn Lynch, keeping him around. Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, uh, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, all significant draft capital were used there, or were given significant capital through an extension, whatever the case might be. Uh, I think it matches value, scheme fit, and position of need very well. I think that's one where it checks all three of those boxes. And Genty, I think, is someone where you have Geno Smith throwing to Brock Bowers, fantastic. Jacoby Myers, I think he's one of the more underrated receivers in the league. But you need someone else. You need someone else in that offense to lighten the load a little bit. So Gino wasn't doing so much of the heavy lifting. I think bringing someone in like Genty, who's I think has the potential to be one of the best backs in the league right out of the gate. I think that'd be a smart move for the Raiders. And I mean, they have a bunch of needs on both sides of the ball, but I think from a pure best player available perspective, I think at 6, it's probably going to end up being Genty, at least in my opinion.
You can wager that the Raiders are going to draft a running back at minus 150. You can wager that the Raiders are going to draft a quarterback at 17 to 1, Jacob. 17 to 1. There are a number of mock drafts out there that actually have Shedeur Sanders going to the Raiders at 6. Any world you live in, you can see that happening.
I mean, maybe. I think you're looking at it's interesting because the Raiders and Jets both kind of invested in short-term solutions. I mean, Geno Smith is good, but I don't expect he's going to be the face of the franchise for 8, 10 years in Las Vegas. And then Justin Fields, he's the Jets have him on a 2-year deal, which is essentially guarantee that he'll be there for those 2 years. But outside of that, it's up for grabs. So I'd say that's just enough of an investment to make me think that the Jets don't go quarterback at 7, but it's not enough to make me think they won't invest early in a quarterback in some capacity. So the Raiders, I don't think go down that route, but maybe in like the second or third round, they find someone they, say if Jackson Dart falls, if, they really like the tools that Jalen Milrow has to work with, or they bet on the upside of Quinn Ewers, then maybe they could do something like that on day 2. But I think they pass on a QB in round 1.
Well, you mentioned the Jets, and they're sitting there at 7. You have Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State, going to the Jets, which, by the way, you could wager that at 3 to 1. A number of analysts that I've spoken to really use the analogy of like a George Kittle in regard to his skill set. And we saw Brock Bowers just how phenomenal he was last year for the Raiders. Why do you have Warren going to the Jets at 7? And whose game do you think his play resembles?
Yeah, so I've seen a good amount of those George Kittle comparisons, and honestly, like I do get it. I'd say Kittle's just a tad more explosive, but you look at the versatility still, the fluidity, the hands, the body control, the willingness to bring it as a run blocker. I think Tyler Warren's one of the better blocking tight ends in this class as well, which I think is something that doesn't get nearly talked about enough. Uh, I look at the Jets specifically because I think if he's there, which I'll admit. I don't think is a guarantee. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jaguars like him a lot as an Evan Ingram replacement at number 5. But say if he does fall there at 7, I think that again it comes down to best player available. There's a good argument to be made that that would end up being Tyler Warren there at 7. It fits the need that the Jets have, and I think that Warren is versatile enough to where he's not a one-dimensional tight end necessarily, and I think that that's going to be able to manufacture him touches in the Jets offense right out of the gate. So I know there's typically a learning curve, so to speak, for some of these rookie tight ends. I mean, Brock Bowers not being one of those guys, obviously, uh, but I do think that Warren. I don't have him as high as Brock Bowers as I did have Brock Bowers coming out, but he's still a pretty dang good prospect, and I think that the Jets have a need there if they're investing in Justin Fields like this. They have a solid offensive line. Maybe could get one more tackle in the mix there, but I think just a reliable security blanket at tight end would be a good fit.
By the way, this might be one of my favorite wagers because I've spoken to a number of scouts who've said that Tyler Warren is their favorite player in this draft, even more so than Travis Hunter,
Mm.
that he's going to go in the top 10 at plus 160. So you're getting plus money if you want to wager that Tyler Warren is going to go in the top 10.
Hammer that.
You got very interesting. That's some good money right there. At 8, you've got the Panthers taking Will Johnson as the second corner off the board. Again, if you're looking at Travis Hunter like a corner, like I think a majority of people are. But very interesting with the Saints and the Bears, you have both these teams taking offensive tackles, but the majority of folks like Will Campbell first. You do not. You like Mimbu better than Will Campbell. Why is that? Why do you have Mimbu going before Campbell?
Yeah, so I think it's between those two, it's a matter of really what you prefer in a first round tackle. I mean, as far as my own grade goes, I do have Campbell slightly higher, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if someone has Membu overall higher and he gets picked before Campbell. Because you look at it, Membu's what, 20 pounds heavier. He's got longer arms. He's just as good of an athlete as Will Campbell. And so, from a physical perspective, he's got the higher ceiling. So, that's why in this particular mock, I have him going before Will Campbell. But at the same time, I mean, I think Campbell's the more polished technician, and he's been more consistent over the last couple of years in terms of how he uses his hands, in terms of how he processes against, exotic rush packages, and, how he clears out the zone as a run blocker. I think Will Campbell's definitely more polished in that regard, but I could see Membu going before him just because you see his rapid development from 2023 to 2024 as a technician. He's always been a freak athlete, but you're just seeing this past year what he's really been able to do when he can improve his hand usage, improve his pad level, stuff like that. So I think that there's a chance Membu certainly goes before Will Campbell if you're willing to, bet on upside.
Well, and it is upside because you could wager that Mimbu is the first offensive lineman taken at plus 140. At
Mm.
plus 140. But also, even more importantly, let's talk about the fact that it is the Saints. So right now, at 9, the Saints favored right now at minus 170 to take a quarterback. To take an offensive lineman at that position is 6-1. Your thoughts on Shador Sanders going to the Saints?
So I think if Shadur Sanders is available, I think the Saints will take him at 9. It's just a matter of if he'll be there, in my opinion. And one thing that I wouldn't rule out as well is if there's another quarterback needy team who picks a little bit further down the line, uh, like the Steelers stand out particularly to me as an option. They could trade up to 7 or 8 with the Jets or the Panthers, move ahead of the Saints, and then land Shadur Sanders or maybe even Jackson Dart. I don't know, but I'd hazard to guess it would probably be Sanders. But uh, look, I think the Saints have been in need of a rebuild for quite some time, and they just haven't accepted it. I think that once Drew Brees retired, you bring in Derek Carr, he's good, but there's a ceiling there. I don't think that the way that they've handled their roster, I don't think they're ever going to be like a deep playoff contender with Derek Carr as their quarterback. uh, and they just continue to push back, through void years, through restructuring of contracts just to stay afloat year after year. And it's biting them in terms of they can't have long term sustainability. And I think if they want to change that, I think their best bet is to draft a quarterback I mean, again, if Sanders is there, I think they should take him. Uh, but again, there's no guarantee he'll be there at 9. Whether it's the Browns, I don't. You're right. I don't think the Giants take a quarterback at 3. Uh, but maybe even say the Raiders really like him, or the Jets, or there's a team who wants to trade up ahead of the Saints. Then there are a couple factors that can play in there as well.
Do we live in a world where maybe Jackson Dart is drafted before Sanders?
I'm maybe that might be just a fun little something to be like, oh, what if? And I don't know exactly what the odds are on that, so I'm curious.
Two
But
to one, 2 to 1, which
really,
aren't. Yeah, I know, I know.
hmm.
Like I was expecting something like 7 to 1 plus 650,
Yeah.
something like that. But 2 to 1 that Jackson Dart will be the second quarterback selected in this draft. And listen, I've spoken to a number of scouts who feel that he has a higher ceiling.
Hmm.
You look at the tape. There's not as much of a wow factor in regard to what Sanders brings to the table. But I
Hmm.
have spoken to a few scouts who feel that he has a higher ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes sense. I definitely think the one differentiator is that Dart's throws have a bit more zip on the ball, and his arms a bit more elastic. He can throw off platform. He can throw from difficult angles. Sanders, not so much. I mean, he's a little bit more of a stationary type of quarterback. I think sometimes he thinks that he's not. He likes to try and extend the play, thinking he's more mobile than he actually is. I think he plays like Caleb Williams, but he's better suited to be a Geno Smith, if that makes sense. Or at least Caleb Williams coming out, I should say. Uh, and I think that Jackson Dart offers potentially more upside in terms of his mobility, in terms of his arm talent. I think Shadur is a bit better of a processor, reading the full field, going through progressions and stuff like that. But I mean, again, if you're taking a quarterback in round 1, it makes sense to bet on the upside. So if there's a team that feels really confident, like, hey, we can develop Jackson Dart and we can turn him into something, and we can maximize that potential, then I could see it. I could see it. I wouldn't guarantee it happening, Dart going above Sanders, but I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. That's for sure.
Listen, we both been covering the NFL for so long. You know what happens. There's a general manager, there's a head coach, there's a coordinator, an owner who falls in love with a player and is like, that's my guy, and that's who I want, and that's who I'm going to go get. One last question for you, because the over under in regard to quarterbacks taken in this draft is 2.5.
Mhm.
Okay. And there are a number of people who have Milrow and a few other quarterbacks going in the second round. But as we both know, you draft a quarterback in the first round, you've got that extra year, option year in their contract, especially a quarterback that you know you're going to develop. You want that extra year in their contract, right? Before you really have to break the bank and pay them.
Yeah.
So, would you go over under? Because right now, you only have two quarterbacks in your mock draft.
Hmm.
So where what you've heard right now is we're again a week away from the draft. Would you go over under in regard to 2.5 quarterbacks taken in the first round, Jacob?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be a little bit of a hypocrite here, right? Because the mock draft that I sent in, I did a little bit of a while back, and I had two, right? I had two, so that would be the under. But I'm gonna change that now, right? And I'm gonna change that to over. And I think that I think it's gonna be Cam Ward, obviously going number 1. I think Shadur's gonna go round 1, and then I think Jackson Dart's gonna go round 1. Exactly how high they go, I'm not totally sure. I wouldn't be shocked if, I mean, I don't think we're going to see like 3 quarterbacks in the top 10 or anything like that. Uh, but I could see a team trading up into the back half of the first round for Dart or Sanders, whoever falls a little bit more. Uh, and then, I mean, obviously, you mentioned Jalen Milrow too. I mean, someone who's certainly more of a raw prospect for sure, but like he got invited to Green Bay, so he'll be at the draft. The league thinks there's a chance he could go round 1, because they don't invite guys into the green room who are projected like 7th rounders or anything like that. So that was particularly interesting to me. So I don't know exactly where Milrow ends up. That's one where I have no confidence in whatsoever. But I will say now, though, I do think it's going to be above 2.5.
Jacob, great stuff. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
Not particularly. I think, but if there's a way for to bet on Omarion Hampton in the top 15 or anything like that, I'd take that bet. I think that looking at teams who could, potentially take a running back, the Bears being one of them. I know Ben Johnson was really aggressive with, well, maybe not Ben Johnson particularly, but he was involved with the Lions reaching for Jahmyr Gibbs, and now he's one of the best running backs in the league. The Cowboys have a massive need at running back as well. I wouldn't be shocked if either one of those teams ends up with Hampton, especially if Genty goes 6 to the Raiders or potentially somewhere else in the top 10. I wouldn't be shocked if that boosts Hampton up the boards a little bit.
I love it. Before I sign off, I'll take a look at what his over under is, and I'll share that with our listeners. Jacob, again, thank you so much. Let the folks out there know, what are you going to be doing this coming week? Where can they find you? Podcast shows, all the things.
Absolutely. So I will be in Green Bay next week. Covering the draft, doing that whole deal. You can find I'll be doing post game or post pick podcast. That's a mouthful. For all the Chicago Bears picks over at Windy City Gridiron. I'll be doing articles there and at Pro Football Network as well. I'll be tweeting along, so Twitter and X at Jacob Infante 24. You can find me over there. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good time, and I know you're excited for it as well as I am. So it should be a good year, that's for sure.
Jacob, thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're going to take a quick commercial break to acknowledge our sponsors. 500 level iconic original graphic tees. 500 level live like a legend. 500 level immortalizes the legends of the game with iconic original graphic tees. 500 level custom t-shirts typically print next business day and ship directly to your home. Sign up for fan points, begin earning on every purchase. MLB, MLS, NBA, of course NBA, go get your Knicks shirts please. NHL, NFL, of course UFC and WWE. Reminder, 500level.com, that's where you want to go. Use my code MARKS20 for 20% off. Also, big shout out to Naira Bets. You've got the Kentucky Derby right around the corner, Saturday, May 3rd. The most exciting 2 minutes in sports. Make sure you go to Naira Bets. They have everything you need to bet on the Kentucky Derby online and with confidence. Sign up now to get a $25 Derby bet and $200 sign up bonus as well. And big shout out to Batch Cookies and Cream. Go to Batch Cookies and the letter in cream.com to order your box. Family owned, delicious cookies. No oils, no preservatives. They're just absolutely delish. Again, I want to thank Jacob for joining us. Jacob Infante, NFL draft analyst for PFN, also lead NFL draft analyst for Windy City Gridiron. So always great having him on. Such a wealth of information. I love the draft, and I love just getting as much information as I can and analysis and mock drafts so that I could wager intelligently. Which, by the way, I looked it up. Hampton, running back from UNC, to go in the top 10, 10 to 1. 10 to 1 for Hampton, running back from UNC, to go in the top 10. Very, very interesting. And just to recap some of the wagers out there, Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State, to go top 10 as well, plus 160, plus 160. For the Jets to take a tight end at 7, 3 to 1. Mimbu to go before Campbell, plus 140. Plus 140. So just a few. And again, Jacob has Shedeur Sanders going to the Browns with the number 2 overall pick. And again, it doesn't have to be the Browns. Maybe there's a team that goes and trades up to go for Sanders to go number 2 overall. 14 to 1. 14 to 1 for Sanders to go number 1 overall. So some interesting wagers out there that you can make as we head closer to the draft. Again, we are a week away, and I want to remind you, we're really excited. We've got a full-fledged, we are diving deep. Connor Rogers from NBC is going to be joining us. We're going to do all 32 picks. Also, we're going to have a lot of beat reporters who are going to join us throughout the show to give us some insight from the Giants, Paul Dottino, Rich Cimini from the Jets, Dave Spadaro from the Eagles. We're going to take you around the league, some of the teams out there that a lot of people are wondering, what the heck are they going to do? Those beat reporters are going to join us on the program. So be ready. Stay tuned for that. And that show is coming your way the Wednesday before the first round of the draft on Thursday night, so April 23rd. Make sure you subscribe, like, listen, all things to our podcast and, of course, our YouTube channel, On the Mark Show. Really do appreciate it. And again, just a big shout out to our sponsors. 500 level. Make sure you live like a legend. Naira Bets, really excited for our Kentucky Derby preview show that's coming your way on May 1st. The Kentucky Derby is that Saturday, May 3rd. So Naira Bets is going to be sponsoring our show along with America's Best Racing. And last but not least, Batch Cookies and Cream, a small family-owned bake shop, but just some of the most amazing cookies you'll ever have in your life. So go to batchcookiesincream.com and order your box of cookies today. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.